over to Ruthann on Amber. Hopefully is about to share her screen. Welcome everybody, it's noon, so welcome. I'm Bridget Legault, the community manager with Rainforest Calgary. Amber in the background is our community storyteller, and we have members of the Edmonton Rainforest Steering Committee who are gonna usher us into the hour here. So I'll pass it over to Ruthann.
Thank you. Thank you. Great to be here. So in the spirit of reconciliation, we do acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, Guiane, Piikani, Tsuut'ina, and Yekse, Nakota Nation, and Métis Nation in Region 3, all people who make their homes in Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta. And for those in Edmonton, we acknowledge the traditional lands of the Treaty 6 territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, as well as the Métis. These sacred gathering places provide us with an opportunity to engage in and demonstrate leadership on reconciliation. So thank you for your enthusiasm and commitment to that in the rainforest environment. We welcome you here today. We're excited that you joined us.
What does it take to realize an idea or for a seed to sprout? At Rainforest Alberta, we know the answer is rooted in trust. Traditionally, Albertans have cultivated their ideas in established systems. Inputs that don't fit these systems are weeded out. Opportunities for growth are missed. But now, Albertans want a dynamic landscape that can evolve organically, like a rainforest. At Rainforest Alberta, we believe a culture of trust is the fertile soil where ideas grow. Our budding innovation ecosystem is a network of relationships pulling each other up as they push forward in their own field. Trust breaks down barriers. An open, inclusive network increases collaborative innovation. Successful breakthroughs inspire new ideas. A cycle begins. Rainforest Alberta is a movement to amplify trust by cultivating honesty, inclusion, and accountability. How? Our social contract holds us accountable to demonstrate trust across the province. We meet to have honest conversations around collaboration. This leads to more inclusive spaces for everyone to fearlessly build new ideas together. By raising the standard of trust, Alberta's ideas, talent, and resources can be evergreen. Visit rainforestab.ca to sign the social contract and start growing together.
So these are our 6 pillars. That culture of trust and respect and civility is imperative to psychological safety, which everything else kind of falls under. We have strong leadership here. We share resources and help each other to succeed. We have engagement activities that we promote and participate in. And of course, the more formal policy and infrastructure around that. And we really do embrace role modeling and mentorship within the ecosystem. So these are just some housekeeping. Introduce yourself in the chat. Don't be shy. Cameras on is always nice. Connect with individuals privately. Ask questions there. We really want interaction. And yeah, lunch notes will be shared and YouTube videos as well. So utilize those. Share them freely. Diversity. We can't have inclusion safety without having diversity in the room. And it's really that diversity and those ideas that really help us all to succeed.
Awesome. Thanks, Ruthann, for sharing. On the note of diversity, today is an exciting day in Calgary. We will be launching the scorecard assessment, which measures the current state of the 6 pillars. This is for Calgary specifically. So if you're in other areas, Edmonton has already ran theirs. We're evaluating 2021 here, so a little behind the times, but as we've mentioned before, we're working with a few consultants. One is a PhD candidate from UFC who has helped us kind of refine the survey as far as survey design and questions and wording and that sort of thing goes. And we have also been working with Rachel Wade, a diversity, inclusion, and equity expert, who a little interesting fact, I guess I'll fill you in on, is that when the survey expert looked at our scorecard, there were certain questions within the 6 pillars that were loading on an unidentified factor. I'm learning data talk. And when we looked at those questions, we saw that that unidentified factor they were loading on was all related to diversity. And we thought, wow, because we need to do this work, and we've started this work in the rainforest, and it just kind of highlighted the fact that we need to do even more. And so Rachel came on board, and she helped us take a different bit of language into the scorecard that will help introduce some language around DE&I and belonging. And there'll also be a unique DE&I section in the scorecard. So bear with us that it'll take another minute or two to fill those sections out, but it'll really help us splice the data afterwards to be able to see you know, how different demographics or different people with different lived experiences view the ecosystem, and then allow all the partners working in the ecosystem and all of the startups and everyone playing around in this world do better work in that area. So it's a very high level survey of the 6 pillars. And we're going to share the link exclusively with you all here today before launching it to the rest of the universe. We're using a software that is from the UFC, and there's a few glitchy things in there. So if you could all be our testers and fill it out, and then if there's any feedback, bring it back to us. We do know that the number 10 on every scale of 1 to 10, and there are many, is all squished up. And we're trying to figure that out. And Al, out of the goodness of his heart, tried helping us last night. We'll keep working on it. But Amber, if you want to share that link of the survey now with this group, let's hit it. Okay, so welcome. If it's your first time to Rainforest, this is how we operate at the lunch hour. First, we'll acknowledge anyone who's new. If this is your first time here, hit a reaction button or use the old-fashioned arm wave. Hi, Liz. That's my friend and founder of Village Wealth, Elizabeth McCrae. Welcome. You're the only wave I saw, so I don't mean to exclude anyone, but if there's anyone else waving. Elsa, welcome. And Kyle, welcome. Adam, thanks for waving, even though this isn't your first rodeo. Okay, so we are going to feature a founder today, Adrian Mitchell, who's a really avid rainforester. So we're looking forward to hearing from him. After his presentation on his founder journey, we'll open the floor for questions. Everyone's welcome to just kind of raise their hand, and we'll ask you to unmute and share your questions in conversation. And then we'll head into some Zoom rooms, some breakout rooms to get to know each other better, and just you know, kind of see where collisions might happen and people can meet and get to know each other better there. And we'll come back at 5:02 for community announcements. So if you have any of those to share, any exciting things you're working on, you can get those ready to share at the top of the hour. So without further ado, I will introduce Adrian Mitchell. Adrian is one of the co-founders of Cherry Health. He's a proven leader with over 20 years of experience in business development, strategic planning, project management, technical analysis, and economic evaluation. So just a bit of brains up there, Adrian. He's had experience with the intensity of startups, the customer focus of B2B service companies, and the organizational complexities of larger organizations. So at the start of the pandemic, Adrian found himself at home taking care of his 3 kids, while his wife worked full-time as a family physician on the front lines of the COVID-19 response for the homeless population in Calgary. And he had been working in tech for the past 7 years and decided to take the opportunity to refresh his technical expertise by enrolling in the U of C Masters of Data Science and Analytics with a health data science and biostatistics specialization. Adrian, I have taken statistics like 101 like 5 times and never retained it. So kudos to you. I think that's when we met in the rainforest when you were doing your degree. And now you are here as the part of the co-founding team of Cherry Health. So I'm just going to throw it over to you to share your story and where Cherry Health is at. And we'll get going.
Okay, thanks. And I hope everyone can hear me okay. Just thumbs up would be great. Okay, so can you see my screen? Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, we can. Looks good.
Okay, great. I'm going to move my face off the screen. Whoa, there we go. That's not where I want to go. Okay, so I'm Adrian. Co-founder of Cherry Health. Thank you for the great introduction. You've said a lot. You're probably going to save me time. So Amber and Bridget asked me to present sort of 10 to 15 minutes on my entrepreneurial journey to becoming a founder at Cherry Health, and to bring it into the context of the social contract. So I'll try and do that as much as I can. And I'll try and keep it to 10 minutes, but I'm liable to go over, and I apologize in advance. But you've saved me some time, so this is great. So just to begin, I want to start. We've been doing a lot of pitching over the last year. I want to start with this great slide with no information on it, and it's just this typical slide you see in a startup deck. Many of you are learning about entrepreneurship, or you've been entrepreneurs, you've done startups, and it's this nice timeline slide with dates and milestones and stars and validating events and things that are cool that have had it. And we've made it at the end, and that's great. And I thought, well, it's a journey, entrepreneurial journey. That's how I'll just lay out, and I try not to read, but I'll lay out my entrepreneurial journey to becoming a co-founder of Cherry Health from when I was a bright-eyed UBC grad. So I was a summer student in oil and gas. I did geophysics. I was working in mining in the summers, and then I was a summer student in oil and gas, and got a full-time job offer to move from Vancouver to Calgary in 2001. It was great. It was good times. If those of you who remember 01 to 04, 05, before they changed the income trust rules and all these different things started happening, those were crazy times. I mean, oil was below 30 bucks when I started, and then I think it might have peaked 34, high 30s, 40s, maybe a little higher. I can't remember. But it was crazy. It was crazy. And then in 05, they said, okay, you're a good geophysicist. You should learn how to be a strategic manager, a strategic planner, then a project manager, then an asset manager. And I said, yeah, this is fun. I should go do an MBA. And I was applying for an MBA. I was accepted to the University of Toronto. Right when they wanted my deposit, we had the global financial crisis. So I put that off a couple of years. I did an MBA in 2010, also got married in 2010, graduated that in 2012. And this is kind of a fun story for people who think about going back to school and retooling and doing an MBA. One of my mentors at the time said, okay, Adrian, you're going to go do an MBA. And I was working full time at the same time. And you're going to learn all these best practices and things companies are supposed to do, and the best way to do things. And you'll look at where you're working and you'll realize, man, we don't do any of that. So then you'll quit your job and you'll get a new job because that's going to be better. And he was 100% correct. One of my previous managers poached me to go to a different company. You can look at my LinkedIn. I went from Synovus to TACA, and it was still 2012 was good times again. Oil had now reached 120 bucks. So there was things that I don't think we see anymore, like signing bonuses and all that stuff. And it was incredible good times. And then, of course, November 2014, we had this massive oil crash again. And again, think about it, it was 60 something dollars, which is still over double what it was when I joined 13 years before. But that was disaster. There's layoffs everywhere. And it was a good time for me to start consulting. I was done with big companies. I'd learned my MBA, I'd learned all this entrepreneurial stuff and finance things, and I never put them to practice. So I started consulting with an oil and gas startup that was looking at international development in Mexico. I was also consulting with a tech company in Vancouver, a junior tech company. It had been around a long time, so I can't call it a startup, but it was a small tech company that was working in the resource industry, mining and oil and gas. And so I was an account executive for them. And then I also, at the same time, when the oil and gas company didn't flourish in Mexico, we became a biotech startup. So again, I was going through the fundraising and the pitching, and it was exciting education, exciting experience that really equipped me for some of what we're doing now at Cherry Health. By the end of 2019, I was full-time at the tech company in Vancouver. Again, as Bridget said, I had 3 kids, a wife who's a physician, and I was commuting to Vancouver 2 days per week. And that we were going to move to Vancouver or stay here, and we decided we'll stay here. This is at that point, I'd been here 18 years. I'd been hearing about the move to diversify Alberta's economy and move to tech. And I said, well, at that point, I had 5-6 years experience in tech and startups. I said, this is a great time for me to join a startup in Calgary. So I'll do that. But of course, big event, star, exclamation mark, pandemic. You notice all of the ones prior to rainforest are all negative, but I thought I'd make them stars anyways. The pandemic hit. My wife is a physician. She's the medical director at CUPS. So she was front and center on, and it wasn't just dealing with patients. It was just committee meetings with the AHS and the province on how they were going to respond for the homeless to the pandemic. So I got to learn new things. I got to learn how to cook. I did all the Jamie Oliver shows, and I really actually had fun for a month cooking, and then I was homeschooling my kids, and by March I said, this is enough. This is enough. I need to do something new. My plan to get a job in Calgary, there's so much uncertainty. There's no obvious prospects. But if I could go back to school, if I can't find something at the end of that, I could just start something myself. I've got enough experience. So I enrolled in the U of C, Health Data Science and Biostatistics. Now, I thought I knew statistics as well. I've got a geophysics degree. I did my MBA. We did so statistics for science, statistics for finance. I thought I was pretty good, and years of oil and gas. I now don't think I knew anything, which of course is a mark of, you should know, the more you realize you don't know. Biostatistics, in my estimation, is like the apex of statistics. And I could very well be wrong there, but man, that is a real education. And so why did I do health? Well, I said, well, if I'm going to do something new, my wife's a physician, most of my best friends are physicians. Why not do something as different as far from what I know, which is the resource industries. And well, I guess I had some experience with biotech, but go as far as possible as I can. So they have a health data science and biostatistics specialization, and that opened my eyes, and that was incredibly fun. Learning to do machine learning and AI, build AI algorithms, and realizing that I need to work on that for a lot longer. And part of that program is to do an internship. So sorry, I was introduced to rainforest by a friend. I answer that question every week. By a friend in January 2020, Andrew Luchster. I don't think he could make it today. And then I was looking for an internship where I was introduced to Dr. Maximilian Kurz, who's on the call today as well. He's got a PhD from King's College London in machine learning and health informatics. He said, yeah, absolutely, you could do your internship with us. And I know lots of people that come to River are looking for internships and retooling. So yes, there are internships. But he said, but what we really like you to do, Adrian, is to join us as a co-founder, because we're a physician and a PhD, and we don't have your business experience. Says, well, I want to do data science and analytics and the business side. So it was a good fit for me. So I was able to accomplish what I hoped I was going to accomplish when I set out for the degree. And I had something else to say here, but either way, I'm probably running it long. So from there, lots of big events. We had a CMA grant. The Canadian Medical Association gave us a big grant in January of last year. I remember what I was going to say. Sorry. And this is because of the entrepreneurial journey. So one thing I did that might be not standard is, and maybe it's cynicism or whatever, but I realized that I didn't want to work with people or on a project I didn't believe in or I didn't like. So actually I said, that's great, Max. And Max is here and he can verify. I said, that's great, but actually what I want to do is work with you guys for free for 1 month, and then we'll talk about it. So I wanted to see whether I could do school and work, and whether I liked them, and whether I liked the business. And so I did. I worked for free for a month, and then we met in February, and that's when I actually joined the company, because at that point I liked the guys and I liked the company. So that's maybe something I did learn in my previous 19, 20 experiences, is that life's too short and career's too impactful on your life, your quality of life, that you shouldn't like who you're working with and what you're working on. So for the CMA grant, Innovate Calgary Platform Calgary Venture Ready Bootcamp, investment from Startup TNT, end of the year last year, December 23rd, lead investment from Well Health. And now we're executing our roadmap and we're still fundraising. So that is probably the entire presentation, but I do have more slides. And sorry if I go long. So what do we do? Well, we're solving problems in healthcare staffing. Health staffing is a disaster. What do I mean by that? Well, there's Facebook groups of physicians, our CEOs on them, so he's taking screen captures. Here's one. Locuming, that's temporary physicians are called locums. So locums has become one of the most frustrating things to deal with. Same trouble. Yeah, we can't take time off for a break this summer. The worst, not even exaggerating, the worst part of medicine. I haven't had a day off since graduation. Mat leave, I closed my practice, orphaned my patients for 4 months. The system is broken. These are the problem. This is the problem. And so what is the solution? What is our solution to this is an app in your pocket that is a combination of a dating app and Airbnb. It can be imagined as that. And it's for verified physicians and clinic managers only. So physicians who locum or physicians who need locums, people to cover for them, post up opportunities similar to Airbnb. We have pictures and descriptions of their clinics, ratings and reviews of their clinics from other people who've locum. The locums themselves will have ratings and reviews so that when they apply, the clinic has more information and the physician has more information and they can make a better decision. And I can tell you more about why that's important, but we're out of time. I don't have time. So in the breakout rooms, maybe we can talk about that. Traction, how's it going? It's going really well. To date, we've launched in Alberta at the end of 2020. So before I joined, BC in April, Ontario at the end of November, and we're currently at about 13.5% of Alberta's family doctors. And now we're launching it nationally and for specialists. So that's coming up in the next month to 2 months. Who is Cherry Health? What are we? What drives us? So we're driven to eliminate healthcare delivery inefficiencies, staffing primarily. We want to. So the vision, and we have a vision statement. We're currently working on retooling it. So this is my draft. I want to give that caveat. But vision is to reduce healthcare fragmentation to solve system level problems. Big vision. Mission to create a network of healthcare providers and employers to connect. And their values. What do we value? We value trust, connection, helpfulness, which is a good shared. Sorry, I didn't give enough context to the rainforest, but helpfulness is a big one. And joy. So healthcare apps, healthcare companies, healthcare is blue and green. Cherry Health is pink and joyful. Who are we? Resume wise, I can leave this slide up later. We have Max, I've described Jordan, who is a locum family physician. Prior to the pandemic, he knows the problem intimately. He's the voice of the customer. He's our interface to the healthcare system. There's myself. Then we have Caleb and Vladdy, our developers. They're actually in Ontario. Caleb is in Ottawa, Vladdy's in Toronto. And then Nadia Latchman, who's just on her first week this week. And what I mean by that is she was our intern last summer. And then this week, she's rejoined us as our intern this winter term, spring for me. And hopefully we'll stay with us in the future. And she's in the call, so you can bug her in the breakout rooms about that. Or she might have to leave. She's got CDL today. The actual roadmap, I'm not going to spend any time on this because I've gone long. But where are we going? We want to be a tool in every physician's pocket that's useful. It's not just solving their staffing problems. It's giving them other tools, medical education, telehealth, bookings, and some of that's going to be integrations with other digital tech companies. Digital health companies in the WELL ecosystem, but also in the greater ecosystem here in Calgary and beyond. And then no presentation is complete without an ask. So like I said, we're close to halfway filled our pre-seed round. We got the lead on December 23rd. So now we're reintroducing ourselves to VCs and angel investors. And so introductions would be greatly appreciated. Or if you'd like to know more about our story, please reach out to me or Jordan, but me, I'm here today. So reach out to me afterwards. I'm on the Rainforest Slack, I'm on LinkedIn, and this is my information. So thanks a lot for your time. And I open the floor to questions.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Adrian. Good to see the progress there. There are some questions and I'm getting DM'd here, but Patrick, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yeah, I know it's probably because of an interest of time, but thank you for the presentation. I wanted to know kind of how the various comments that you're receiving through this Facebook group that say like the system is broken or things are terrible and whatnot. Are these coming directly from the physicians, and can you elaborate on why they feel the system is broken?
Sure, and I can give some personal. My wife's a doctor, and most of my friends are doctors, so I can also say some of their stories. Yeah, the physicians typically aren't on social media. And the reason for that typically is there's a patient access issue where it's not. Some patients will reach out to them. So my wife's on Facebook, but like using personal email addresses and things like that. but they do have these closed Facebook groups. And there are other people that are not doctors who sneak in, sometimes media, sometimes politicians, things like that. But for those where they have these closed physician Facebook groups, and that's where they vent. And so those are from, I don't know which group exactly, but those comments are from a physician, from physician Facebook group. If Jordan was here, he could tell you which group, but maybe he wouldn't. And so that's where they are. And so there's a huge supply demand gap between locums, those people who will call them like substitute teachers, for example, locums and full-time physicians who own and operate their independent practices. So these aren't like hospital physicians. These are people who are effectively small business owners. They've got prof corps and they have to pay leases and salaries and all that. And if they want to take a 2-week vacation, I mean, they may have 2 or 3 of them, but they may all want to go on vacation time, or they want to take a 9-month mat leave or 12 or family leave, or they get COVID and they have to be gone for the next 2 weeks. This was the beginning pandemic. There's just not enough locums out there or they don't know all of the locums, because the locums usually are in the first 3 to 5 years of practice, or they're at the end of their careers. They've sold their practices to someone else, and now they're just locuming because it's more lifestyle. So there's a huge supply demand gap. And part of the reason for the supply demand gap is there's no system like Cherry Health until us to easily locum. Every time a locum was meeting a new clinic is a risk. So it took Jordan, I think he said, 1 year to 2 years to build up a network of clinics he'd worked at that he liked working at. And then the system to connect with them for jobs was text messages primarily, and then maybe emails or phone calls. And so then he was relatively new grad. He'd like the flexibility of on a Sunday, he could go skiing and then not know where he was going to work on Monday, but he'd send a text to 10 doctors or 10 clinic managers and say, does anyone need help this week? And then he would find out by Sunday night, he would know where he was working Monday or Tuesday morning. And that was the system that he was operating under, but he had a very small basket. With our app now, all the clinics are there with ratings and reviews, and they can, so you can find one that's closer to your house, or find one with the times and dates, or a better that you like, or a better overhead split. So like I said, clinic owners are like small business owners. They have to pay their overhead. It's a fixed cost. So it's not fixed because they take it off the physician earnings. Physicians bill Alberta Health. Alberta remunerates the clinic. Clinic takes somewhere between sometimes 0 if they're desperate, but 0 to 30% of that fee on overhead. So if the physician goes to a clinic where he sees no patients, which happened to Jordan, he covered for a clinic for 2 weeks where he saw virtually no patients, he made $0. Big risk. He also worked at a clinic where they didn't pay him for a year, right? These are, and probably not because they meant, it wasn't malicious, maybe they're poorly organized, maybe financial. Running a medical clinic is a lot more difficult than it might seem. Family doctors, and I can say this, like I know this from my friends, like it is, running a business, being a family doctor owning a clinic is running a business. And all the education to becoming a family doctor has absolutely nothing to do with running a business. It is science, it is healthcare, it is years and years and years of education that have no finance courses. I think Jordan said he's like a 3-hour course or a 1-hour course in how to run a family medicine clinic. So there's a big problem out there. So I'm rambling a little bit, but the supply demand problem is big. When they take a vacation, they need someone to cover for their patients and for their economics. And the systems for locums to find jobs are, prior to this, were job boards or referrals from friends, and they were often very variable in their experience and the outcome of their experience.
So you're addressing a communication kind of issue, right? Where like people don't know that these locums or these other doctors exist throughout the system. It's not because like we don't have enough doctors in the system, period, or anything more like wider systemic than that.
Well, I think there's both of those things. There's not. It's so difficult to be a locum that eventually locums stop locuming, right? So they'll take a job because it's so frustrating. And so maybe our app will actually make it so easy that people will locum for longer. We don't know that yet. I'm not going to say that's for certainly going to happen, but I can definitely imagine that will happen. But then again, if you know 10 locums, say I'm a doctor and I know 10 locums, and I come down with COVID, so now I got no one to cover for me next week or the week for the next 2 weeks, and I text 10 people, and all 10 say, what are the chances that those one of those 10 is free next week? It's pretty low. But if I have 1,000 locums on my platform in Calgary, let's say, and I just post it, the chances of one of 1,000 being free next week is obviously 100 times higher, right?
Cool. Well, thank you. There's a lot of other questions. I'll follow up with you on LinkedIn or something like that. I have a couple other questions that I want to clarify, but this is really cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Good to see you, Patrick, or not see you really, your name, but good to have you here again. Haven't seen you in a while.
I've seen Patrick off camera or on camera before, so I know.
Yeah, you know,
I'm currently
that's
cat sitting for a friend, so I'm in like a messy kitchen and trying not to get clogged. So that's
you
what
showed us your kitchen before. Nice. Okay. Peter wants to know what the business model is. Who's paying, Adrian? And then we'll go to Adam's question. You can just go next, Adam.
Okay. Yeah. Good, Peter. Good to see you. So, in the spirit of free help, which is, so there's some context for you. And we've made the app free for physicians and clinics for the locum piece. So we're trying. It does two things. The previous locum solutions charge money for locum posting. They charge, and like I mentioned, the odds of people getting a locum match, even today, until we get more people, it is not fantastic because of the supply demand gap. You know, we're working to make that better. But paying for something where you're not getting a match is frustrating. And like I mentioned, clinics don't make a lot of money, despite maybe some do, but most clinics, the clinic owners I know, you know, the clinic managing themselves, it's not very, very profitable business. So paying money for something where you don't get a result is frustrating. So we made that free. It reduces barriers. It brings more locums and more physicians, more clinics on, and that makes it better and makes them, it makes everything work better. And so where we will monetize or attempt to monetize and we've signed some sales contracts with clinics for recruiting full-time doctors. So in healthcare, it's common for a headhunter, a medical recruiter, to charge between $10,000 and $30,000 for a physician on a success basis. And so we're going to monetize there with full-time ads. And so that portal will be coming, actually, it's ready to launch. So we're probably going to do it next week. We're just going to double check a few things. Right now on our app, we have a number of locum posts that also say, we're also looking for full-time doctors. And so we have to reach out to those clinics and make sure they know we're changing our terms and conditions, and that it can only be the locums that are free. And then the full-times, we're going to have to sign up for a success fee based contract. And then as well, we're going to be, once we have enough physicians on a network, then there's a lot of more commercialization opportunities. Peter, I see you every week. I'm happy to chat more about it. But definitely a lot of the med tech, biotech startups, their biggest struggle is reaching physicians. Pharmaceutical companies still send reps to a clinic to buy lunch for everyone in the staff there.
All day long, yeah.
To try and
get chocolates and donuts for the doctors.
And to get like a minute or to 5 minutes of a doctor's time. So, you know, great for the staff, but I mean, that's how much money is being spent by pharma on reaching physicians. What about the biotech and med tech startups? Like, they don't have budgets like that. So reaching physicians is a big problem. So we definitely see opportunities to be a distribution channel to those physicians. For those startups and those companies, and potentially for pharma as well. We haven't talked to anyone in pharma. If anyone is in pharma, love to chat with you. But you know, it's kind of our vision is build the network, build the utility of the tools so that physicians are using it, and then work on how, you know, what are we going to bring to the physicians? What are we going to do with that?
I'll follow up with you later. Great to see you. Great story. And then I'll set up after I ask, what about jurisdictional issues between provinces and authorizations to write scripts and that sort of stuff that might come into play here?
So we're not doing telehealth, right? And we're not, okay, oh, sorry, the right script. So if a doctor locums in another province, so we verify physicians are registered by licensing body in the province that they work. We don't currently insert ourselves into the vetting process between the clinic and the physician. Because I'm not sure if a clinic owner would really want us to, right? Okay. That's a lot of liability. They're just giving, they're gonna take our word for it. So, you know, we may get there at some point, but right now it's up to the clinic to ensure that the physician is licensed. And we may build in ways to verify for people to upload their licensures and those types of things for the clinics to then see, but that's currently in the plans. But also physicians are licensed in a province in Canada, so they have to pay for inter-province licensure. And like the Yukon's like $50, but the Ontario is like $2,500 to $3,000, right? So there's a fee. There's also a barrier there for the locum themselves. They have to decide whether they want to get licensed in another province.
Thank you.
That's not our issue. We have them all on the platform. Physicians in Calgary can see opportunities in Toronto. If they want to move there, maybe they're from, actually my neighbor across the street is a cardiologist from Thunder Bay. And she said, you know what? I would love, she just had a baby. I would love to do a summer locum in Thunder Bay next summer. Can you let me know if one comes up? So I've got it on my list, like cardiologists in Thunder Bay, do you need a locum next summer? But, and she can worry about the licensure thing.
Thank you.
Hit it, Adam.
Yeah, actually, Adrian, great presentation. You actually answered my question on like cross-jurisdictional inventory available to all like buy side. So yeah, it'd be cool if there was like national inventory for supply side reallocation for all doctors. Like, hey, we're pocket segment over here where we could use some more locums, which hopefully cool cross-jurisdictional capability. I hope you get there. And actually, admittedly, you answered my question about some sort of programmatic ad inventory because you have a captive user audience that you'd want to push products in front of. So I actually have no more questions. You answered both.
Yeah, we're not like, when you do a locum, it could be like a week, 2 weeks. So right now, the need to come back daily is really not there. We're getting about 30% engagement. Users who are engaged are coming to our app about 3.5 times per month for approaching 4 minutes per session. So that's our engagement. So it's like a typical social network can be upwards of 90% engagement, daily usage, things like that. We're not quite there. We don't have messaging, all those built in yet, but we're building towards that.
Cool. Rooting for you. No, it's great. Resource allocation in a streamlined way, especially when it comes to the government. I'm all about it. So congrats, man.
Have you read this one, Adrian? The cold start problem?
No.
Network effects.
Is that like how to start my car 3 weeks ago?
yeah. It's all about network effects. I just started it, but it was been recommended to me on many occasions, and I'm sure a lot of founders here could good book recommendation. Thank you. There are lots of questions here, so we'll take a couple more, and then we'll save some time for networking. So I'm just going to head over, Alan, because you're live and in person. If you want to ask your question, and then maybe Adrian can answer some in the chat, or you can see him in the breakout rooms coming up next.
I'm going to ask Max if there's any questions he can answer in the chat. Max, please,
Cool.
please answer.
Well, hey, I don't mind addressing Max.
No, I'll answer questions in person. I'm doing in the chat.
Okay, got it. So I was just wondering, because I have a friend that's a pharmacist, and there's sort of it's not quite the same way that you explained it, where it's like longer term placements, but I know my friend Michael goes to a number of different places on a regular basis to help out with pharmacies and different things like that. And a lot of times they're, I wouldn't say rural, but they're in smaller communities and things like that. So do you see that there could be a need for your app and that into other areas? Like I'm sure into like X-ray, what are the MRI, all those other kinds of areas, because the healthcare system always sort of seems to have those little glitches in different places. Is that something that you would be looking at in the future?
To hear your allied health expansion. So, beyond health, so actually anecdotally, so do you know how, I'm not sure anyone here knows how substitute teachers are currently arranged. There's a call system. They call a call board saying, I'm not coming to work today. And that call board calls all the supply teachers that are available. So an app like this is needed in everywhere. Now people have tried the pharmacy temp pharmacists or locum pharmacist business is big business. I have a friend who had a business like that in the 90s in Edmonton. He was telling me about, he's a pharmacist. And they would arrange housing and all those other things as well. So certainly this is ubiquitous. I mean, you can imagine that even restaurants could need this problem with servers, especially during right now with COVID and like imagine if you just had 20 servers who'd been onboarded already to your system but didn't work full time, but they could cover you or they're available to potentially cover you at any time. I mean, that'd be really valuable. So no, we're healthcare focused. We see ourselves expanding across the allied health domain.
Good. Thanks.
I was thinking about that for servers earlier in the pandemic. Interesting. Okay, so let's carry on the conversation in some smaller rooms. So Adrian and is it Max that's here? Will probably be split out. And take this opportunity to either carry on this conversation if there's something that's been bubbling and you didn't put your hand up and you want to chat about it in relation to this this company, Cherry Health, bring it to the convo. And if there's anything you want to ask the community for, or anything
I think the whole team is here except for Jordan. I think.
Okay, perfect.
Caleb and Vladdy are here too.
If you guys end up in the same room, do you want to just come back and I'll put you in a different one so you can share the love, the cherry love.
Okay.
Okay, see you in about 7-ish minutes. Welcome back, everybody. I'm going to ask you to, it's been a while since we've gotten feedback on size of breakout rooms. We try to shoot for 4, but always push up to 5 because there's always people who drop out or whatever. But just know that like you can come back to the main room and ask to be reassigned and whatever. This is a very free flow activity. So if you didn't have time to finish your conversations, that is great. It's a good reason to connect with people outside of this hour, either on LinkedIn or in our Slack channel. And if you don't have access to our Slack channel, you do gain access when you sign the social contract. You get an onboarding email to the online community there. And I get a lot of people asking me to add people to the Slack channel, but you do have to sign the social contract first and agree to live by those values. So we will turn it over to community announcements. Does anyone have anything they'd like to share? Thanks for all the feedback on that.
I guess Jade's not here, so I'll the Startup TNT Life Sciences Summit is next week. For those who don't know what Startup TNT is, they're one of our they're one of our investors. So they're, I'm a big fan of Startup TNT. It's TNT stands for Thursday Night Tradition. So every Thursday they're in Calgary, Edmonton, and I think Regina and Saskatoon. There's a meetup right now. I think it is still in person, but when it did go virtual during the pandemic. And so Thursdays at Briggs. And then the summit is next week. So that is free to attend and watch. You don't need to be an investor. If you want to be an investor, it's not too late to join. And I can put the website in the chat.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Adrian. I was on Jade's show this morning telling it like it is, bragging about the rainforest. So if you're still unsure about what the rainforest is really all about, check out that or check out it made me remember the fireside chat we had with one of the co-authors of the Rainforest book that is on our YouTube channel, Fireside Chat with Greg Horowitz. I'll just give that shout out because it's such an awesome video to check out about the rainforest.
Yeah, and you did a fantastic job, Bridget.
Can
I plug our rainforest event happening coming up in Edmonton? So the Rainforest Summit will be on March 24th at the Riverview Room in Edmonton, the Edmonton Convention Center. We would love to see lots of people there. It's capped at 80 tickets. So we haven't opened registration yet. I will be creating the Eventbrite link this weekend and we'll start really promoting. But yeah, if you want to just save the date, March 24th in Edmonton, the YEG Rainforest Summit. Thanks.
Awesome. Joanna says in person. What?
Yeah,
that's great. Perfect. And a few other announcements there. It looks like WUNMI has a meetup coming for immigrant professionals pivoting to tech. You want to share anything else, WUNMI? Unmute or not? I'll also put in the chat that the podcast, as usual, the Libby podcast, which just reached 20,000 downloads on Podbean this week, is always looking for hosts and guests. So if you want to try your hand at being a podcast host, all you have to do is fill out a Google form and you're in. So let us know if you want to do that and take part in that way in the community. It's pretty a fun way to get involved.
Can I put in a plug for Zach, who probably won't do it for himself?
Yeah, you can, Joanna. Like, good idea.
Zach's running a course on careers in tech that, does it start next week or has it already started?
Next week.
next
Yeah.
week. So I don't know if it's too late for this cohort, but it seems pretty cool. If you're not following him on LinkedIn, you should check him out and see what he's got going on.
Thanks
Put it
for
in the
doing
chat, but yeah, I was not going to bring that up, but
that.
way to put me
I'll
on the
just
spot.
shamelessly plug.
I did do it last week, but okay. But
Awesome. And do know that Zach has a community all about pivoting into tech, and it is a flourishing, lovely community of humans. So check it out if you want to mentor people pivoting into tech, or if you're curious. But that's the top of the hour. So today we're only going to leave the room open for about 10 more minutes. We usually keep it open for as long as we can, but we have to move on to scorecard work. So again, check out the scorecard assessment and give us any feedback within the hour if you can. But it will go live to the rest of the Calgary community here this afternoon. So have a great week, everybody.